You're at Lake Rant, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one is for Junbei, who says, hey, please rant about producing your own instrumentals. Or if there's an album you've been listening to that you want to talk about, you can rant about that. Not really. Haven't been listening to that much music lately. I guess the best thing I've heard lately has been the Slauson Malone album that Fantano reviewed. Pretty great. Anyway, producing my own instrumentals. I learned a lot from Frank JFC, particularly one video he made that kind of made me understand how hip-hop has kind of always worked, which is that you basically just layer a beat and a sample. So what I mean by that is that in old school like jazz recordings and shit, there are lots of times where there's no other instrumentals playing except the drums. And so most hip-hop beats come from taking a sample of just what is called a drum break, meaning a part where it's just drums that are playing, looping that drum break, and then finding another sample that's at the same BPM, or you can match the BPM, of maybe like a snippet of a song that sounds good when looped, and then you just match the two. So you've just got a looping beat and then a looping sample, and those two things over each other sound good, and it sounds like a song by itself. It's just an interesting way of noticing sort of that we as listeners, we don't really mind repetition. In fact, a lot of the times we enjoy repetition. We want to hear the same thing over and over again because we like it more the more we hear it. The more familiar we become with something, the more we enjoy it. It's why there are countless 90s radio songs that if I heard them for the first time today, I would think they were total dog shit, but I can listen to them even if I don't like them just because I've heard them so many times, I'm familiar with them. So, when we think about musicians back in the day when the only way to hear music was to like actually turn up to a venue and hear people perform, what was respected the most was the height of their ability as musicians. But like in the era where music becomes easier and easier to consume, where you can hear it all the time, where you're not necessarily concerned about every single thing you're hearing reaching the height of potential of musicianship, and in fact you kind of listen to most of your music casually and just as something to have on in the background, or as something to just give you a hit of a certain type of emotion, something more specific, you're not really so concerned about that, I don't know why I'm going into so much depth about this. I guess just because I'm thinking of it for the first time. In any case, this is sort of what I think justifies the existence of hip-hop. It's just that, like, you can take those sounds and sample them and repeat them, and they are good, even without having to hear, like, the incredible musicianship that was on display in the original recordings. And then you just loop that and rap over it and, give a message that people are interested in. Because a lot of people don't really connect to music except in lyrics, except in the message, And so I feel like a lot of the time, a good rapper is basically a cipher explaining what they feel out of a beat to an audience, And it's part of that is why, like, I think a lot of classic 90s rap was mostly just about just creating a groove over which to rap, and the rap was the main point of it, whereas I think with modern rap music, there's a lot more of this idea that you're capturing the sound of the beat, that the beat has to have a mood, and that you are meant to be reflecting that mood in your lyrical content, and so it creates something that's more of a song than just a rap, in my mind, which is why I tend to like that kind of thing. So ever since learning about how easy it is essentially to make a beat, that you can just grab a drum sample and a sample of a melody and match them together. It's fun to fuck around with that. And of course you can go infinitely more in depth than that. You can, generate every single sound yourself in a beat. You can craft a beat out of sound samples using the internet, using any noise. I mean, when I first started producing my own instrumentals, I was mostly doing a cappella beats and sampling stuff on my desk in a way that was inspired by like clipping and death grips and stuff like that. So let's say I would turn on my microphone and bang the desk. That's my drum noise, you know. And I would record that in Audacity, loop it about 100 times, modify it with a bunch of stuff to make it sound less, you know, less grating. And now I have a beat, you know, and then I might sing like a hoo ha hoo ha hoo ha hoo ha hoo, loop that over it, modify it, make it not sound just like my voice doing that, you know. So if you listen to a lot of my earlier music, a lot of it is just that simple, and it's all made by me personally. And then over time, I started to learn how you could use samples and stuff online, and you know. Even to create, say, a beat structure in FL Studio and then plug noises into it. So, like, if you open up FL Studio, you'll see a graph, essentially, of beats. So let's say you set it to 120 BPM, and you see 8 slots for each instrument. So you put in, like, at the first beat and at the fourth beat, a kick drum. And then at the second and third, you put a snare drum or something. And now it sounds like boo-ta-ta-boo, 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 repeating over and over. Well, now you can take that drum, you know, each individual drum, and choose whatever sample you want to be that sound. So they have a bunch that are in the library already. So maybe instead of boo, it sounds like buh, you know, and now it's buh-da-da-buh, buh-da-da-buh. Or you sample yourself going, and now it's and just fucking around with that, you can do all day. And so when I listen to, say, like a JPEG Mafia instrumental, I see that he's crafted a beat, probably in something like FL Studio, and then he's taken a sample, probably of something he recorded himself, and made his beat map, put in all these samples of things that he recorded himself, and then made slight variations on it, like, you know, saving it as separate beats and then, you know, varying it. So let's say that you have the boo-ta-ta-boo, boo-ta-ta-boo, but then you make a different version that goes boo-ta-ta-ta-boo, and you only put that in every fourth, you know, segment. So it's like one boo-ta-ta-boo, boo-ta-ta-boo, boo-ta-ta-ta, boo-ta-ta-ta-boo, boo-ta-ta-ta, boo-ta-ta-ta, you know, whatever. Basically, how complex your beat is at this point depends on just how much work you want to put into something. And for me personally, I don't get gratified as much by going in and filling in every little detail in a song. I really only care about the broad strokes, usually. I care about what is the mood of the song, what am I trying to convey. I'm not too concerned about the bells and whistles and nailing everything down. So, like, when I make songs, they tend to be very short, very straightforward. There's usually not a ton of structure to my beats, except for just like a little bit to break up different parts of the song. So let's say I'm doing a verse, let's break down Boomer with a Beer Gut, because that's one of the most simplistic songs I've done. With that song, I was like, I want to make just I want it to be heavy and slow and plodding, because it's meant to sound like a fat old man. You know, it's a song about being a boomer with a beer gut, a fat old guy. So I wanted it to sound simultaneously slow and plodding, but also heavy, menacing, and evil, because this boomer with a beer gut is basically, you know, a salty old bastard who's talking about how he's going to fuck your girlfriend and get off his lawn, you know. So I'm going through just a list of drum beats on, what's the website called? Beat Labs or something like that I learned about from Frank Javc. Rhythm Lab. Rhythm-lab.com, or Rhythm, is that, what's it called? I don't know. Rhythm-lab. And it's slash breakbeats, and they have just like a huge list of drum samples. So I went looking for something that was particularly boomer, and I came across Led Zeppelin When the Levee Breaks, which is one of the most famous drum samples. It's been used a billion times. It's Led Zeppelin, it's dad rock. I thought that would be funny. So the beat is just the drum break from When the Levee Breaks, repeated ad nauseum throughout the track. Then for the melody, I was like, I want a tuba, because tuba sounds fat, you know. So I just looked up on YouTube tuba line or something like that, and I found some video of like two high school football team bands like playing a tuba battle. So I found a piece of tuba melody that I thought sounded good and would make a good riff, and I just played that on repeat over the other thing. Then I modified both of them with a bunch of just the preset sounds that are in FL Studio, so, maybe some reverb, some weird shit here and there. But for the most part, I thought it sounded good enough that it could run for the whole song, and again, the focus of it is more the lyrics, the screaming. Then there's a part at the end where things get really hectic and chaotic because I'm rapping faster. And for that, I use something called gross beat, which basically just is like a noise gates slash it just basically makes the beat do things. So let's say that you put in a pattern, let's say it's a straight line and then a dip and then an escalation, another dip and an escalation. It'll make it so the beat changes at those dips in a way where maybe it plays two of the same beat or something. So it'll go from going to going or something like that. And so I just throw some gross beat on there that I think sounds good and a couple extra effects, and now it's a beat change, I didn't really change the beat because the sounds are exactly the same. I just changed the rhythm that the beat occurs at so that it would match the chaotic intensity of the other part. So that's just a minor adjustment to make the structure of the song a little bit different. Whereas there's other times where I might make a more hard beat change, like in the second track on the Unknown Tape, where that song is built entirely of samples of an old Trial of the Golden Witch song, but it has a very clearly distinct front and back end because I changed which song is being sampled, but they're both using similar gross beats, so it's the two halves kind of sound like they flow into each other, even though there's a hard break, just because they're both sampling, similar styles of recording, and they both have gross beat put onto them. So there's a cohesion, even though it's such a hard change in the beat. Stuff like that. I focus more on the structure, more on the basic, overarching theme of the song, and don't try to go too much into the details because I will honestly just lose interest. I really try to crank my songs out as fast as possible while I'm feeling whatever mood spurred the song on to be created in the first place. Unless I'm rapping over someone else's beat, in which case, it just depends on how long it takes me to bring the concept of my lyrics to fruition. But I always just write based on what their instrumental is, what it makes me feel. Why is it that whenever I talk about music, these go on way longer? I don't know.